Welcome to the Limitless Leaders podcast. This is a show where my guests and I explore and expand on all things mindset, leadership, and communication. On the show, I interview inspiring leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all walks of life, where they share their stories, experiences, and lessons. This is a podcast for you if you're looking to learn, grow, and accelerate your life, career, and who you are. Hi, and thank you for tuning in or watching the Limitless Leaders podcast. We talk about strengths in our work, tapping into the things that we're competent at, the things we enjoy, and the things that make us unique. And I've always been a big believer that if we can understand and appreciate each other's strengths, complement each other, we can leverage and rise as a strength-based team or organization. So you can imagine I was pretty excited to get today's guest, Charlotte Blair, on the show. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, thank you very much for having me on. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, pleasure. So Charlotte's one of the longest established and most experienced Gallup Accredited strengths coaches in Australia. She's the founding member of the Strengths Partners and works with individuals, managers, and teams across the world to help them discover and use their strengths to meet their business and personal goals. After transitioning from a sales role in one of the largest IT companies, she now runs 2 successful businesses and partners with other coaches and learning organisations to deliver great outcomes. Charlotte is dedicated to helping people get unstuck and love work again. And she knows this through discovering one's strengths, shifting mindsets, and leveraging some useful tools and frameworks and finding a cheer squad to support you. Charlotte lives the beautiful Macedon Ranges with her husband and 2 sons after moving out here from England 14 years ago. She's a retired equestrian and backyard beekeeper. She's also the author of an amazing new book that I've just had the pleasure of reading called Career Unstuck that we'll talk about soon. So welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you very much.
The Macedon Ranges, beautiful.
They're beautiful. Yes, I feel like it's a little bit like the weather changes so much, so it's a bit like England.
You'd feel right at home in Melbourne then.
Yeah, it's nice and green. You get a bit of snow, you get a bit of cold, and whilst I'm a retired equestrian, it's a very horsey area. So that's what drew us here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Charlotte, we'll talk about your book a little bit more later,
Sure.
but I'd love to ask you, I'm a big believer that who we've become and who we're continually becoming, there's always a really good backstory there. How have you ended up doing what you do today?
I always feel like this could be a really long backstory, and I had to be really mindful to shorten the backstory. So I left school as quickly as I could. I actually didn't go to university. I'm a now proud dyslexic, but when I was younger, it was always, Charlotte has, bad attention to detail. Charlotte talks too much. And I just sort of went out into the workforce. And I initially started with horses. So I worked as a groom in various yards. I worked in various restaurants. I then found myself in a temping contract at Canon UK, the photocopying company. And as a result of that, I found myself then into a career in sales. So I picked up lots of different opportunities there, found myself then working at a big global organization. Now, here's the shortened part of it. When I was in a training course there, I was in the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People course.
Yep.
And it talked about what your mission and purpose in life was. And I realized that my mission and purpose in life was not to be an IT salesperson. What were some of the things that I really loved doing? Fundamentally, it was helping people and bringing teams together and arranging things. And it got me thinking a little bit more about what my career could be. I felt stuck at the time in my career. And then it sort of, led me to discover my strengths. The guy that delivered both the training course for the 7 Habits and my strengths became a big mentor of mine.
Wow.
And I kind of said, oh, Brian, I think I want to do what you do. How do I get to be a facilitator and a coach? And he said, well, you need to go and get some training. And I then did a complete sort of career transition. It's funny, I've done more training in the last, I don't know, probably 10 years than I
Never have.
ever did in the however many years before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Wow. And what is it? Who do you ideally work with these days?
Typically, I work with organisations, so the corporate organisations. I'll work with the likes of sort of Telstra and Australia Post and the Transport Accident Commission, and I wouldn't say I have a specific industry that I work with. It's interesting when people ask me. People often would
Yeah.
think that I would work more with IT, given that that was my background, but I
Yeah.
don't. I'm really passionate about supporting other coaches as well, especially Gallup accredited coaches as they do their accreditation. And then like, oh my gosh, how do I put this into action?
Yeah.
So part of 20% of my work is working with other coaches.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I really love my favorite types of teams are already great teams that want to become more high performing teams.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
chatting earlier about, Michelle Redfern being a mutual contact. I remember her saying, I've got this really great team, but she's a maximizer. I want to take this to being an even better team. And
Yeah.
they're my favorite types of teams of going, how can we take these really unique individuals and help them really bring their strengths out and leverage those differences within the team? So that's typically who I
I,
work with.
I love that. And I think too much in the past, training, coaching's always been looked at as remedial. And I'm the same. I love working with people that are already great because you know they're growth seekers and they want to go to that next level. It's interesting, isn't it? I came from food, so everyone thinks I work in food. I work in 20 industries like you do, but you do. People tend to look back. Now, you've just released a great book, Career Unstuck, How to Play to Your Strengths to Find Freedom and Purpose in Your Work Again. Tell me about how you birthed the idea for this book.
It probably came from two parts. The first part was a little bit like the journey that I just sort of shared with you. I didn't go to university. I've not been a big CEO in an organization, but yet have completely transitioned my career and started my own business. In fact, two businesses. And a lot of people say that's a really inspiring story. I think you should share it with other people. So
Mm.
that was one. People go, oh, I think you should write a book. The
Yeah.
other one was, I think, particularly during COVID, I was coaching a lot of people. There was a couple of sort of organizations where I was coaching individuals and managers. And I always ask this question on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love your work? Because people would often come and what do we want to talk about in the coaching? And yeah, kind of, don't love what I do. So I'd ask that question. The number would be very low.
Oh, yeah.
And I would find myself getting towards the end of the coaching and they say, well, what should I do? And we know that a pure coach shouldn't be giving advice, but I'd find myself towards the end saying, look, this book really helped me. Look at Keith Abrams' Start with Passion or
Yeah.
Simon Sinek's Know Your Why. And when I did this exercise of discovering my own values and my strengths, this really helped. If I think about the three-legged stool and what's most important to me at work, this really helped. So I found myself doing repeat emails following up the workshop of here's some things you might want to consider that help me.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to be able to, you'll notice that book's an incredibly practical book. It's a bit like
Yeah.
having a coach in
That's
your
why I love it.
pocket.
That's why I
Yeah,
love it. It's a resource you can keep going back to.
yeah, and it doesn't, it's not like got to start at the beginning and read it all the way through. It's kind of pick it up. So it birthed through those two reasons of sharing a little bit of my own story
Yeah.
and some of the belief systems that might kind of come in there, but also some of the things that help me get unstuck. And
Yeah.
as an activator, I want to be able to inspire other people to take action, to move away from something that's sucking at their soul and,
Yeah.
having them not loving their work and life to something just that little bit better, even if they can shift that dial from a 4 to a 5 in terms of
Yeah.
enjoyment of work such a long period of time. So that's kind of how it came about. And then, the birthing of it was through many a support system like Kelly
Yeah.
Irving. We were mentioning pre-show at the expert author community. So it was a
Yeah.
journey in itself, birthing it, but where it came from was those two avenues.
Exception. I love it. I love it. And I love books where, I read a book a week at night, so I'm an avid reader. And I just love books that I think the sign of a good book is when it's dog-eared, it's written in, sometimes I lend them out and then I go, oh, I've got my notes in there. Um, and I think a book based on your experience, you're practicing what you preach, which I think is really important. I love that question you brought up, Charlotte, around, you know, do you love what you do? I usually ask, are you good at what you do? And a million hands go up. Then I go, are you energized by what you do? And they usually come
Mm.
down. And being, we spend 80,000 plus hours at work, I think it's a pretty important question. Um, what I'd love to ask you, I don't like bringing up the pandemic, but the world has changed since then. I think, what were they calling it? The Great Resignation. I was calling it the Great Rejuvenation because I think it's a good thing. So I think organizations have had to step up. People are questioning why they do what they do. In your book, you talk about people are really seeking to find more purpose. What's driving that?
I think that came up through a number of conversations that I was having with people saying, no, I don't necessarily love what I do, but I'm not sure why I'm doing it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm making a difference. And especially when people did most of the coaching that I was doing was as a result of them having taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment and then discovering their strengths, and they felt like what they were doing wasn't necessarily aligning with their strengths. And if they were more of an achiever and they wanted to kind of get stuff done that was more meaningful, or if they had belief and they had sort of these core values that was driving what they were doing, there seemed to be this regular misalignment. And
Mm.
when people explored a little bit like you're sharing there about what really motivates and energizes them, whatever it was doing right now wasn't necessarily it. And this topic of sort of purpose just kept coming up. Freedom, obviously, I think the freedom was probably a little bit more of a pandemic thing as
Yeah.
well. Like,
Yeah.
call it that endowment effect. Once you've got something, you've got a bit of freedom and you've worked out that you can't work from home, you don't want to give it back.
Mm.
So how can we get more of that freedom? But the purpose, I think purpose is an interesting word. I think people
Yes.
sometimes think it needs to be this big grand statement, but it
Yeah.
doesn't. It's like, what's your why? Why do you go to work? And I'm sure it's not just to pay the bills. I'm
Mm.
sure you want to be doing something that feels like you are making a difference, even if that making a difference is stacking shelves in a supermarket so that somebody can find their groceries faster, being able to connect people with the why they do what they do.
Yeah.
I think was important. And of course, everybody's going to be different.
And it's appreciating no one is you. And I always, even if I ever have a pretty high energy, I don't have many flat days, but if I do, it's usually because I'm not doing the things that really light me up. And you're a business owner too. Like 90% of what I do, I love, but there's these back end bits that I just go, that doesn't light me up. So I think it's so important. One of the Gallup, and I'm a big fan of Gallup, we used it a lot in my previous corporate life. 59% of people at work are emotionally detached and 18% are miserable. That shocked me.
It's a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And has that changed at all, that stat, or is that pretty much how it is
No,
now?
it's pretty much how it is. Yeah, that was I think only last year's stat, and the dial hasn't changed much. I think if anything, over COVID, the dial went down a little bit,
Yeah,
but that's more recent stat. But I think it sort of went down even from where it was. I think it's a world challenge and something that Gallup themselves and their own engagement work are always trying to shift the dial. And
yeah,
we know that strengths can make a big difference to that. If you have the opportunity to do what you do best, you
yeah.
are more likely to be enjoying what you're doing and feeling more engaged at work and, not miserable.
Yeah, and a lot of these strengths are unconscious, right? A lot of them.
Ah,
That's
yeah.
what, we know some of them, you get your results, you go, yeah, yeah, didn't know that. How important is it for people to really identify what their key strengths are?
I'm probably biased because I'm a strengths coach, but I think it's critical. I mean, we talk about this process. You're probably familiar with sort of, name, claim, and aim. So you need to be able to kind of name what they are and understand the role that they play and say, yeah, this is me. I can see how this helps me, but I can also see how this hinders me
Yeah.
if I let it go a little bit rogue on me, or I am not investing in it in the right way.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
key bit that I think often gets missed is the aim bit. Okay, yeah, I know this about myself. I always ask
That's
in a
it.
workshop,
Yeah.
what percentage of your report did you feel sounded like you? And most people are around 80, 100%. Yeah, gosh, this is a really accurate report. I can see how these are my strengths.
Yeah.
But it's the aiming bit because of this intentionality, sorry, and because of this just autopilot, this is what we do. I think sometimes we need to really stop and think and be intentional. How could I intentionally use my analytical? How could I intentionally use my responsibility? And then that's when we start to sort of shift the dial. And obviously in the teamwork that we're doing, when we can intentionally partner with people
Oh, who
that
is
have
different?
strengths in areas that we don't, then that's when the business outcomes are very different in terms of, productivity, engagement, profitability. But I think that can often be the struggle piece of helping people really think about how they can use them. I
Mm,
love this saying. I read this saying recently, and it's the Ethiopian saying
yeah.
of fish see water last. And I think that's a little bit like us with our strengths, that we are so like fish submerged in
Love
water
that.
that doesn't necessarily know it. And I think sometimes we see the world through our, I'm coming up 52. We see our the world through our eyes. I've seen the
Yeah.
world through my eyes for 52 years. There are some things that I don't necessarily realize until, it's pointed out, or I have a coach that helps me see it. And once we see it, we can't not see it. But then what am I going to do
Right.
with what I've just seen?
I love that. I'm very, very much into action and implementation. Like, knowing is one thing, doing's where the magic is, and really identifying your strengths and then going, how can I bring more of this in? Especially I've done a study on a Monday morning because Monday sets a tone for the week. So do the things that light you up as much as you can on a Monday morning. And I've had some clients, Charlotte, that, if they feel flat, not sure why, I'm like, get out, get your reports out, have a look. Oh, I'm not getting people, feelings, group environment. And I'm like, when do you see your team? Oh, Friday afternoon. Why don't we change that to Monday morning? And that little nuance, which the team were fine with, changes your energy for that whole week.
Yep.
But I love what you said about the fish with water. It's like us, we don't see air or we don't really think about it because we're just surrounded by it. So, um, on page 43, I love this. What's keeping you stuck? And for those listening or watching out there, you might not feel stuck, but you actually might, after hearing all of this, realize that you can emerge with a different focus. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. Uh-oh, mud. Thick, oozy mud. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. I love that.
One of my favorite children's books. We're going
Oh,
on a bear hunt. Yeah, I think, there are a lot of people when you dig a bit deeper into, well, have you given yourself a 3 out of 10 for that, that number? What is it that makes you say that? And yes, there's a multiple set of reasons, and it could be, as I explain in the book, from the shitty boss,
yeah.
the statistic that 1 in 2 of us have had a bad boss at some point or left an organization as a result of a bad boss. That's what can be keeping us stuck. And there's a couple of people I'm coaching at the moment, very senior leaders, very competent leaders, who are having their confidence absolutely pummeled as a result of a micromanaging, bullying,
Yeah.
boss. And that can then knock your confidence so much that you don't think that there's anything else that you could possibly do. I think it's a bit like being trapped in not that I have been, but when you hear people are trapped in a abusive relationship,
Yeah.
they
Same
kind of
thing.
can't get out.
Yeah.
It could be, one of the other common ones that I hear is this piece about kind of sunk costs. Like, I trained to become an accountant. I can't retrain, I can't throw away all that time and money that I've invested. And I like,
To attach to it. Yeah.
yeah, correct. And I listened to a lovely podcast by Seth Godin of sunk costs, and he talked
Oh,
about that's a gift of yesterday. Like training to be an accountant, that was a gift of yesterday. The
Mm.
gift of today or tomorrow is going and doing something that does, give you energy or, lights you up if being an accountant no longer does this.
Yeah.
I seem to always use accountants, and I feel like accountants getting a bad rap when
I
I
use
use
I
them.
use engineers a lot.
I'm sure some accountants absolutely
Generalize.
love their job, but I remember coaching this one guy who didn't love his job anymore, got into it because his parents wanted him to become an accountant. And he's like, well, that's all I know and I can't do anything else. So it was a bit of a mindset thing, bit of a, I've already invested the money. So
Limiting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there are so many different reasons of what might keep somebody stuck,
Yeah.
but often our own mindsets can be the
Oh,
biggest challenge.
totally. And it's that whole, that what is it? People do more to avoid pain than they do to seek pleasure.
Hmm.
Imagine going and having to learn something new. I may as well stay here because I've done that. I think something that, I'm really aware of is even I've had my business 18 years. Every 7 years, I'm always writing new IP, but our focus changes. And I don't think it's any different when you're in a corporate career. And I think societal norms are you've got to have a team to move to the top. And there's so many people leading teams that don't enjoy it. And there's this whole trajectory that's laid out. But I think knowing your strengths, to me, is almost the ingredients in the cake. And your job is to mix them together and rise and be happy. That's how I see it. Because if you're not doing the things you love, what are the key downfalls if you're in a role you're not passionate about, but you're good at?
Well, I think it can have a major impact on your own health.
Yeah,
So if you are, I don't know, clock watching the whole time and oh my God, when's the day going to be over? Number one, you're not living your absolute best life.
yeah,
If you go home and you're absolutely miserable, either because you're working for a terrible boss or you're just not loving what you're doing, that can have a real impact on your mood, which then has a knock-on effect to the family and loved ones
yeah,
around you. It drains your energy. You go home, you
yeah.
can't be bothered to then go and meet up with friends. So there's enough research out there that says that it can lead to heart disease. It can lead to shortening your life.
Hmm.
So the effects can be huge, but at the end of the day, we don't know, I don't want to be morbid, but we don't know how long we have on
You
this
don't.
earth.
Yeah,
And I'm a big believer in, I think we should, take every opportunity and live life to its fullest.
yeah,
I think one of the books I really love reading, I don't have it here because it's actually by my bedside. And I'm not a massive reader, but it sounds like I am, isn't it?
yeah,
Is Bonnie Weir's Five Regrets of the Dying. And I
I haven't
in
read that.
yeah, well, in Career Unstuck, I put an additional reading
Yeah.
at the end of each chapter. And again, she worked in palliative care and found that there were common regrets of people that were dying. And, one of them was, I wish I didn't work too hard or so hard. I wish I didn't spend so much time working hard in a job that I didn't love
Yeah.
doing. And I
Yeah.
wish I spent more time with loved ones. It is possible to find work that you enjoy doing and gives you the freedom to work, to do the things that you love doing with your loved ones.
And that says it, I can't remember the stat, but it was something like, I don't want to quote it because it could be wrong, but it was quite common it's quite common at the moment that so many people have a side hustle because they're not
Yeah.
fulfilling their purpose at work. So they got these, I can name nieces and nephews in their early 20s, the ones that are just going into the workforce have already got these little businesses that were, I'm 52 as well, unheard of back when, probably lucky, hey, imagine how many businesses we'd have.
I love that concept. And
Yeah,
again, in the research of my book, I did look into this whole piece about side hustle. Apparently, somebody was telling me in Singapore, a lot of people have, kind of
yeah,
side hustles there. So yeah, if you want to kind of like test out something else, I talk about a whole chapter of the book of dip the toe or
yeah.
jump right in. Dip the toe and try something else that you love. Try a side hustle. Go and volunteer at your kids'
Oh,
school, making the background of the art show, whatever it is that lights you up, find an opportunity to do that. And then you might find that, yes, you can actually make a career out of it. And there's
yeah,
lovely, whilst I was going to quote them in the book, while I didn't get to it. You mentioned at the beginning, I'm a beekeeper.
yes,
And the two ladies in Kyneton, they run this lovely organization or business called Waggle and Forage and selling bee supplies.
Oh,
Now, Jo there, she worked at Telstra. She worked at, big company here in Australia, got a redundancy package. She took her redundancy package and started up this company with her partner, and absolutely loves every day what she did. I think she used to
oh,
enjoy her job quite well. But
yeah,
that was a passion that they had. And
yeah.
then they kind of turned it into a business and are doing super, super well. There are so many stories out there of people that have sort of dipped their toe into something on the side, and then it's eventuated. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
And
everybody has to go and start their own business, but
no, but you're right. It could be a community, it could be a school. I heard through I do a bit in construction and building, and there was a construction worker that decided he wanted to be a primary school teacher. And he spoke to someone I know, another coach, and they said, don't you haven't, it's a lot of study and you're a construction worker, so you're hands-on. Why don't you do English as your second language? He goes, why? And they said, well, it'll let you test out how you go with study, and you'll also be able to apply it at work because the work he does. So he's ended up doing that, not doing primary school teaching, but actually working in construction. But he's like the conduit to open the conversations with that. So I just think it's that cute. I'm very big into that, the gift of curiosity, um, and just opening that up.
yeah, but I think a lot of people, it's the fear
It
factor
is.
that they don't
It
step
is.
forward. And again, that's what I want from the book, of just people to have the confidence and feel inspired just to take a little step forward to try something, or a little step forward to go and have a conversation with somebody that
Yeah.
about what could be possible. But I think our mindsets hold us back of going, oh, I can't do that, or it won't be possible. And it
Or
is.
that it happened, it wasn't possible in the past.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, I'm a big advocate for effective communication in workshops, in businesses, and appreciating diversity of thoughts and ideas. We actually just created a game, a card game, all around debating two sides. When I think of strengths and the work that you do, especially with Gallup and reading your book, how does understanding your strengths and those of those around you, how does that contribute to better communication?
In multiple different ways, I guess. If I, think about a team that I'm working with at the moment, there are some people in that team who we do this activity that's called the best of me. And we go, you get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when, this
Yeah,
is what I need from you, this is what you can count on me for. And it's really interesting that some people there, you're going to get the best of me when you get to know me as a human. If they're high relator and they like that kind of deep relationship, just take time to kind of talk to me and get to know me as a human and ask me about me. Yet there's other people that are kind of perhaps more the activator and the achiever, and I just want to get it done, that go, oh, you get the worst of me when there's small talk. I just want to kind of get on and do things.
correct. Yeah,
And them understanding that, this person needs this and this person needs this, where might we be able to meet in the middle?
yeah,
Or there might be somebody who's more about I want to see the facts, the data, the evidence. They're very highly analytical,
yeah.
and it's, give me the evidence. And somebody else is not thinking like that and will maybe tell the story, and they're like, oh my God, I don't need the story, I just want the data. Or there's people that are going, hey, I want to know where we're going in the future. And there's other people that are going, yeah, but I want to know about the past and where we've been and how that corresponds. So I think there are no strengths or talents that are opposites, but there are some that are less likely to go together. And therefore, when we understand the power of bringing those two together, it's amazing. So, one of the guiding principles is differences are advantage. So
Yeah.
when we're thinking about how do we communicate it with each other, me going, oh, I know that you're a future thinking person, and I'm a little bit more of a past thinking person. I can help you think about the past in order to shape the future.
Stuff. Feed it in. Yeah, I love.
Yeah. So that, there are so many different examples of that, of the differences, and how those differences and similarities can be brought
Oh,
forth to achieve,
yeah,
better things. And by talking about it and having everybody have the opportunity to share,
yeah.
these are my talents and strengths, these are how they show up for me, this is what I bring, this is what I need, that's when effective communication starts to kind of come in a bit more.
That's right. I love that. I'm so in line with your philosophy on this, and it does work. Like you and I have seen it in so many different teams and organizations. Um, I'd love to just so gift mindset's a concept that, or a mindset, I should say, I've lived since I was 23. And it's all around unwrapping the gifts or the lessons in challenging people and situations, and also positive peoples and situations. And in a workplace, creating win Wednesdays, failure Fridays, and certain skills that you deepen through doing this. What's a gift, good or bad, that you've had in your life that you think really stands out that's led you to do what you're doing today?
Gift.
Lesson.
Probably, yeah, I was going to say probably some feedback. So, you're familiar with the strengths language, but some of your listeners might not be. I'm high in the talent theme of command. Now, I don't like the word command. For me, it means courage.
Yeah.
But I can be quite a forthright person and say it how it is. And probably, previously, sometimes it still probably gets me in trouble, but in the past, I might have been a little bit too forthright and outspoken. And when you add it with the communication, I'll call a spade and say it how it is.
Yeah.
And receiving some feedback of how that has impacted other people has been really useful. So I've learned then to temper it with a little bit of woo, which stands for winning others over, or positivity, so that it doesn't come across like a sledgehammer, that it's a little bit more gentle. So I think feedback, but feedback that is given in a useful way of understanding the impact that it has on the other person.
Yeah.
It's not a sugar coated, but it's also not a blatant.
Without,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I know you do a lot of work in this area of kind of feedback. So I think that has been useful. Somebody holding up the mirror,
Yeah.
I think, has been a useful lesson. I feel like I might be going off on a tangent here, but what's coming to mind for me here is actually the power of coaching, like having somebody else to be able to kind of talk this through, and a coach to be able to hold up the mirror. I think for me in the last 10 years, since I've become a coach, having my own coach has
Oh,
been
yeah.
incredibly powerful. I believe everybody needs a coach.
Yeah.
So I think, that's having somebody that you can talk through some of these things as well,
Yeah.
um, I think has been an incredible gift.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I mean, it's like a doctor not having a doctor. I remember years ago, I've been coaching 25 years, people would go, why have you got a coach? And you're like, it's not remedial. It's for you to be who you are and more, and a collaborative partner. And I remember, Charlotte, being stuck in the back door of some businesses because they didn't want anyone to know they had a coach. Whereas now you go in and everyone's really public about it. So I think that's great. And feedback, yeah, I mean the mirror, the way we see ourselves usually isn't the way others see us. Even the way we look isn't the way others see us. So
Correct. And having that awareness. I love Johari window as a bit of a tool to think about, what can I see and others see, and what
yeah,
can others see that I can't see, and
yeah,
what can I see that others can't see, and sort of trying to think about how we can widen that window to bring that greater self-awareness. And then again at teams, the awareness of other people, that they think, feel and behave differently. So I'd say that the other gift probably for me is discovering my strengths.
yeah,
That's the bit of having a language to be able to put to that command of going, oh, okay, yeah, I've had this feedback a lot over the years. Now I've got a
ah,
language to put to it, and I can see how it can get in my way, but I can also see the power that comes with it as well, and understanding that
yeah,
it can be used in a really wise way, of having somebody that is willing to kind of speak up and challenge or push back, or not accept things, because sometimes that role might be needed in a team, or sometimes that
yeah.
role might be needed somewhere, but I know now how to use it in a wiser way.
I love that. I'd love to ask you, how fixed are our strengths? So, if I got profiled, I sort of know what my strengths are. I find out what my strengths are. There's some I didn't know about. How fixed are they? Is it dependent on industry change, maturity in role? doesn't
there's a few things in there. Typically research, the Clifton Strengths Assessment is backed by 70 years of research by Gallup, a big polling company.
yeah,
Over 31 million people around the world have taken the assessment, and they have a technical paper that talks about the test retest validity. And the test retest validity is about 0.7. Our strengths are typically developed by the time that we're 14. And
yeah,
there's an element of nature and nurture there. So some of it we're just born like. I'm a woo, and I've got lots of siblings, and I'm the only person that's a woo and, loves talking to strangers and socially courageous. And some of it develops over time as a result of our upbringing. I always say my mother, we were late for everything, late for school, late for ballet, didn't matter what it was, we were late. And I always said I was never going to be like that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
hence my responsibility has probably come in, and I always try to make sure I'm early. When people take the assessment and they might take it a second time, like I'm working with an organization at the moment, and there's quite a few women in leadership program, there's quite a few ladies that have taken it again. They're like, oh, 10 years on, I've taken it again. They go, oh, my talents have changed a bit. But all that really typically happens is that they move in order. When you take the assessment, there's 177 questions that they're asking you. Now, if you took that assessment 5 minutes after you took it the first time, the likelihood of you answering all those questions exactly the same way is very slim. But if relator was number one the first time, next time it might be number 3.
yeah.
You were referring to a cake earlier. I love
cooking. I don't even know where that came from, by the way.
well, I love cooking as well. And in my coaching, I use the analogy. So for those of your listeners that are only on podcast, I'm holding up Jamie Oliver's 5 ingredients book here. Sometimes when people discover their strengths, they only discover their top 5.
Yeah,
And that's 5 ingredients that make up a cake. It might be the butter, sugar, flour, eggs, and a bit of vanilla essence. It's the combination of those talents that make up the cake. It's not saying that whatever is at number 1 on your strengths report is the most important. It is just an ingredient that makes you. Now, when you take the assessment, you discover your full 34. But what we find is that it's the sort of top 10, 11, 12 maybe, that are the key ingredients. They're your go-to things. They're the things that appear on your shopping list on a regular basis. But often we might be using the, I don't know, corn flour that's at number 18. You know where it is, you know how to get it. But
probably good at it, but it's not your top preference most
correct.
of the time.
Correct. Or the things that are at the bottom are typically not what motivates and energizes you. Or they are, and you are using something else to achieve it. Like number 34 for me is learner. I left school as quickly as I could, activator. I jump out into the world and I learn through doing, but it doesn't mean to say I can't learn.
No.
It's there. So I guess the answer is they're not fixed. They tend to move around, but there are things that you are drawn to that you love doing that tend to stay at the top.
The innate.
If somebody's got woo down the bottom and they go, oh, I really want to work on that. I really want to get better at wooing. Could they get better at wooing? Probably. Is it going to motivate and energize them? Probably not. In fact, I use this as an example with people sometimes. They go, surely I need to work on what's at the bottom. Okay, you got woo towards the bottom. I want you to go to a networking event every day this week and meet 100 new people. And you just have to look at exactly that. You look at their face and you go, why would you do it then? Yet you're high analytical, you're high intellection. If I said to you, I'd love you to sort of sit down, deeply think about this and, analyze some spreadsheets and tell me what the patterns of data, they go, great, I love doing that. Thanks very much.
See my face then.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, you and I, maybe not, but
I'm big picture creative. I love what you're saying and I so agree with it. And I think that's the little nuance that people have to be aware of if you do this is these are your strengths in a pecking order. And I'm like you, they always say in anything we do, they go, so what about where I need to improve? And I'm like, be aware of them, but the things that don't light you up, find someone who likes doing
correct.
that.
Yes.
I'm a dream team. Oh, we could talk all day. Had one tip right now for those listening that are going, you know what? I don't really love what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. I'm in a default, autopilot mode. What's one thing they could do just to get the ball moving?
Well, other than buy my book, no. One tip would be I'm a big fan of writing a list. The simplest thing that they can do is write a list of all the things that drain them. What is it that is you are not loving doing. Why is it that you're feeling a bit stuck and you don't love what you're doing? Write a list of all those things that are draining you. Now write another list of all the things that when you think about your best day at work, what are those things? Who are you interacting with? How are you doing them? What are the things that are lighting you up? And then sort of start to see the patterns. Now, the second tip would probably be go and take the Clifton Strengths Assessment. Anybody can Google, Gallup Clifton Strengths and find the assessment. Discovering your top 5 is only $39. Discovering your full 34 is only $90. They can find a link on my website or just sort of say Google. It will be there. So I know you only asked for one and I just gave you 3, but the list is the simplest thing.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something I think it's easy to do. And it's surprising how many people I've watched go to do that and they actually can't think of anything in their current role that they're really loving. So it's not always a bad thing. I say it gives you inspiration to free up your future so you can do what you really want to do.
That's right. Yeah. What are some of the things that you might want to be doing? What are some of the things that, do light you up, even in your own weekends, maybe? What are some of those things? Because even if it's, I don't know, sitting down reading a book, maybe that might give you some sort of insight as to something else that you could be doing. Maybe it's hanging out with my friends,
That's
Is it just one friend? Is it a big group of friends? So we start to sort of see those parallels. But
yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. Before we finish up, I've got some quick trivia.
Oh, beautiful.
What is your favorite word, Charlotte?
Activator.
Oh, I like that. And I can see that on your screen. They're your top, are they? Are they in
They
order?
are.
They in order?
Yes, but again, we don't worry too much about the order. They're just the ingredients that go into the cake that is Charlotte Blair. But yeah, I'm a big fan of action, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah. Favorite sound?
Kookaburra. So since moving here, like I love just listening to kookaburras laugh, any time of day. It just might look like my face lights up the moment I hear a kookaburra laugh.
Oh, and they're saying listening to songbirds actually does have well-being effects. It's been shown. Last meal, what would that be?
This is a toss-up between a plate of scallops and prawns. I love scallops and prawns, but I'm a bit weird here. I really love liver and bacon. So finely sliced calf's liver. Most people would be like, ooh, but no, I really love liver and bacon with a lovely gravy. So it'd be a really tough choice between those two. Probably right now, if I had to choose right now, it'd probably be the scallops and prawns, only because I know my son's gone to go and buy some and we're having them for dinner tonight. So I'm already thinking about it.
Decide what I am having for dinner tonight. And if you've done so much already on this planet of ours, if you had a different profession, what would that be?
I would love, and I still think I would try and dabble in this, not dabble in it, but I'd love a 6-month comment. I'd love to be a recruitment consultant. Like I love talking to people. So being a recruitment consultant that helped people find jobs that light them up is something that I would quite like doing. So I kind of, part of me feels like one day I might go, I'm going to have a 6 months sabbatical. Who's going to give me a job being a recruitment consultant for 6 months? But I also love doing what I do now, so that might be a tough thing. But yeah, it'd be that.
And it might evolve and merge. You never know.
It could. Who knows?
You got thinking now. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I feel we could keep talking. We might have a part 2. So how do people get your book, Career Unstuck? Where can they get it from?
They can either get it direct, if they're in Australia, they can get it direct from me, from the author, happily sign it and send them a little note in it as well. So if they go to careerunstuck.com.au, they can buy it directly from me. Otherwise, they can go into the library, request a copy, go on to Amazon, buy a copy there, Booktopia, buy a copy there. So any online bookstores, it's readily available. You can go into any of your local bookshops and ask for a copy. But if you'd like to buy it directly from me, go to the website.
Get it signed.
That's right.
Important. And how can people find you if they really want to go deeper into strengths and the amazing work that you're doing?
Yeah. So again, they can find me through Career Unstuck. They can also find me on LinkedIn. I do like LinkedIn as a platform. Very happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn, as long as they're not immediately trying to sell me something. That's very annoying when somebody sends you a contact and then tries to sell you something. Or the other website for the corporate work that I do around strengths is thestrengthspartners.com.
Okay. We'll put all of those in our show notes. Thanks again, Charlotte, for coming along today. So many words of wisdom there. And if you want to get it all at a deep level where you can actually put it into practice, grab Charlotte's new book, Career Unstuck. Wherever you are in the world, night or day, thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate your feedback and any guests or topics you'd like us to really expand on. Keep an eye out at our website, reneegiarrusso.com, for upcoming public events and Cook and Connect retreats that we're now running with teams. And as always, stay safe and thank you for listening or watching. Thank you for listening to the Limitless Leaders podcast. So you don't miss an episode, make sure you follow the show in your favorite podcast app. Feel free to share this podcast with your family, friends, and work colleagues. If you're enjoying the show, find out more on what we do at RG Dynamics at www.reneegiarrusso.com. Until next time, be limitless.